And welcome to another edition of Unexplained Cases Live. You got Rick Garner and you got Darren Dedo. Yeah.
What up? Yeah. What is that? I have no idea.
You know, that was
just weird. It's been a weird day. Let's just put it that,
it's okay. Hey Michelle, hey Irene, got some folks already in the chat tonight. Basically we've been talking about the idea that tonight's topic going to be a little different. And in case folks are wondering why things have been a little unique the last couple of weekends, Miriam has COVID and is recovering.
Yeah, poor. I mean, and really bad. I mean, You know what I mean? She's really, poor thing, has been down for over 2 weeks, right?
Well, from the first of the year. So, yeah, I mean, basically that kicked off. What a way to bring in things, right?
We thought 2020 was bad. Here comes 2021. Right?
Welcome, Michael Chinn. We got Alex, Zonda,
Barbara, Jenny.
Oh, howdy from a Fort Mojave.
Fort Mojave.
Nice.
I wonder what that is. Is that Arizona or is that? I wonder if that's Utah.
Well, good, correct. Alex, tell us exactly where that's at. Intuitive healer, cool. Jenny and Barbara and Pamela. So, so definitely, folks, healing prayers for Miriam and her husband, Bruce, and ideally she'll be back next weekend. That would be phenomenal, but obviously getting well and healing up is the most important thing right there. So we certainly have missed her, to say the least.
Yeah, two ugly dudes and no Miriam. Our ratings have gone way down. They're like, oh, these two guys? No, the two middle-aged fellas.
It's two old guys here talking about the paranormal. I mean, we may start dropping off here very quickly, but joining us tonight would be actually our psychic artist, Angela Boley, to be able to talk about a very interesting subject that's very apropos for her, haunted items. Because she actually has some in her own home.
Some pretty scary stuff.
Not just two, but three that I know of. And we're
the trifecta.
I know. We're going to be talking on those. Hey, Linda and Kathy. And what's up, Mary, Christina? Yes, Carrie. Thank you so much. Hope they do recover very soon. Alex is in Arizona, so he's...
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I think Alex and I connected or whatever. Hey, Alex.
Yeah. Stacy, yes, 2021 does suck so far, but that's okay. We're
it's like, no, not again.
We're plowing through it.
Oh my gosh.
Trace Ann, hi guys. I think I caught everybody that's in the chat right now. Appreciate it. So, this is also what they call in the business padding, stretching time. And in case you notice me looking down at my phone.
It's a developing situation because Angela is very punctual.
Yes.
I mean, if there was a party, she would probably be there before the party would even start. I feel bad when I'm late, if I jump on late. But some technical problems tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a Wi-Fi thing or the trifecta of terror, the three items didn't want to, talk to us tonight, or what's going on? What's the latest on the breaking news situation?
The breaking news. Well, I shared the link with her. She said that she was having trouble with the link. And so that's what's kind of funny about all this. Darren and I were talking beforehand how this is not the norm. You can certainly have technical issues with anything, basically. I mean, if it involves computers, please, you know that can happen. But it's not normally an issue that someone has trouble with a link. But you and I were talking like, well, she's also sharing about some items that are like in her home. So what if those items have anything to do with this?
It certainly, the timing is suspicious.
The timing is a little suspicious, but thankfully I see her in the green room, so she's
here we go.
Situated, so that's awesome. So I think I was going to let her get all situated right now. Irene, it can be a spirit thing too. Yes,
I agree with you totally.
Irene's one of my favorite people, and my goodness, it exactly can be that. They can be naughty that way. Causing some like digital recorders. Yes. Speaking
or millimeters.
Well, speaking of last week's show, I mean, actually, Mike, who had mentioned the fact that he had recorded, knew it was rolling, knew he was
yes,
recording in that cemetery,
Yeah.
and then gets back and there's nothing there. And then I said, dude, you got to test that, see if it happens again. Nope, worked perfect. So it's just like, there you go. It can happen in those spiritual situations for sure. So Angela just stepped away. So I'm just basically was going to bring that up. So,
Oh, is that a doll I see?
hey, you.
Hey, good evening.
Hey, my sound's down, so I can't hear you too well. Do you mind if I get some earphones? Because you sound like you're a million miles away from me.
Oh, go ahead, get some earphones. I'll actually, I'll drop you out for a second, bring you back in.
What in God's name was that thing she had? It was like the evil Teddy Ruxpin or whatever from the 80s.
So everybody, you're going to be in for a treat because we're going to be exploring, like I said, this is an interesting topic to me. Darren, you may find it very
I know. We've really never done anything on it. I mean, I was thinking about in 20 years, I don't remember doing anything literally on haunted items.
Yes. Now, Irene, the fact that she apparently, if she's actually referring to your Teddy as mini Rick, Irene, we're going to have some fighting words.
You take everything back, all the nice words you said about Irene.
Everything. I don't know you. I discommunicate you. No. So there's that guy. So this is, I guess what we really need to do here is let's explain here. What do you have? What's a backstory?
It looks so innocent. It looks so gentle and cuddly, and and it's so close to you. Is that safe?
Warm and
He's
fuzzy.
totally safe.
Okay.
There's only one of the three that I have that are dangerous, and but this one's my favorite. Now, he's unique because he's a spirit, but he's not a spirit of a deceased person that's attached to this bear. He's what's called a tulpa. And a tulpa is like a psychic creation that you create something in your imagination, a character, a person, an entity, and it becomes its own separate spirit, its own separate entity out of your own mind. And I read about the Sherpas, and there's some sort of meditations that this is done on purpose. Now, in this case, he actually, on the ghost box, he came through because I was surprised. I was just trying to tell him or trying to use him as a test subject to see, okay, I have these dolls with attachments. One of them has to be the control. One of them isn't the control. And I was going to use the control thinking that there was nothing attached to him, but I got intelligence responses from him. I've had paranormal activity around him all of my life around him, but I just thought these were just spirits passing through. But I learned through the box that it was really him. He considers himself alive, and he has the best personality. And how he came to be, in particular, he was talking about the plane a lot, planes. When I was about 4 years old, which would be right? He said, we've been together about 40 years, so you know about how old I am. But at about 4 years old, I took him everywhere with me, and we went on an airplane. It was my first airplane ride. And it about ended in disaster because the airplane lost an engine. They were going down. Everything was shaking apart. The plane was shaking so violently that all the oxygen masks came down and all the overhead bins doors fell open. And we were given a countdown to impact. So they started saying, 60 seconds to impact, 30 seconds to impact, 20 seconds to impact. At 20 seconds to impact, the pilot restarted the engine that was lost, and it restarted, and then he had to avoid running into a hotel building, so he had to take the plane straight up.
Whoa.
And we went from going, when we were,
so it's like one of these, like, whoo.
Yes, we were going in a straight down dive, spiraling to the ground, and from that to going straight up, and we were thrown back in our seats, and he had the engine screaming, and it was terrifying.
And you're only 4 years. You're 4 years old, right?
Yeah, I'm like, I need you,
Whoa.
And of course, everybody, when we got off the plane, all the crew, I couldn't believe how calm they were after that. They were all very calm. And because I wouldn't be.
Do you still fly? Because I don't know if I get back on an airplane again.
I took a flight out to Arizona and I was sweating bullets the entire time. It was like a 2-hour panic attack for me.
Well, it's a little bumpy out here too. We have the mountains.
Yes. And, he was with me the whole time, and he just started, I started to rely on war because when I had more, awful things happen in my life, he started to be a really good companion for me. And he, for the voice box, he says he's alive. He, for the spirit box, I should say, that he calls himself, he says he's happiness. He's happiness bear. I said, are you a happy bear? Are you happiness bear? He says, I'm not nightmares, I'm happiness. I said, are you happiness? And he said to the spirit box, truth. And
right.
I would play little games with him. For example, I'll think of a color or an animal, and I won't tell him what it is, and he will say the right answer through the spirit box.
Oh.
He has predicted a few things for me, and he also manifests physical activity that we would associate with ghosts, but he's not a ghost. He will, when he gets lonely, he taps in the whole room, just constantly tap, 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 and you'll hear him around tapping the whole room. Small objects will be moved. You'll hear footsteps. Sometimes he'll tap me on the hip, like even though he's not physically there, it's like a spirit tapping me on the hip.
Right.
He's woken me up before the alarm goes off because he hates the alarm, and he'd smack by smacking the side of this bin I have next to my bed and just smack it really loud, and I'd get up, and I'd ask him, why you're tapping, why you're doing all this. He says, I'm lonely, and I've done experiments with him. So I took him out on a drive in the car because I thought, well, this will be interesting. So I took him in the car, and on the spirit box, he started saying, help me. I told him I can drive. I got a driver's license. And when I said that, he said, bad idea. And then.
So judgmental.
we got to our parking lot, and he's like, I want to go home. And I said, okay, we'll go home. So I park, and I have groceries in the back, and I thought, well, I better back the car up because I have a hatchback. So I said, Rich, stop, we're home. And he says, Yahoo, boss. And then I said, wait a minute, I got to back up. And he says, Lord. Just like
so that's
that.
all through the spirit box.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
It's just, I have an interface through my phone. Otherwise, I would have it here, and you could hear him. But he has a whispery kind of voice. And he has spoken through an EVP voice recorder separate from the spirit box. And the voice that came through sounded like me as a child. It was like my child voice coming through. Very interesting. But he's funny. He's entertaining.
And Irene thinks that he feels like a child 5 to 6 years old.
Yes.
I can see that. Yeah. Spot on.
Absolutely. His personality is like, and we are so connected. For example, if I have a bad traffic day and I come home, and the first thing he'll say on the spirit box, it says bad traffic, for example. I had the spirit box on while I was driving home, and as an experiment, I asked him, I said, if you have a connection to me and can hear me and know where I am, just say, and it's you, happiness bear. At the time I call him blue bear. Sometimes I call him blue bear. Blue bear, just say I love you. And I got I love you loud and clear over my spirit box. And he does say that a lot to me anyway.
When you first started noticing this, did you ever say to yourself, like, this bear is talking to me? I know I'd be just like, I can't believe this is happening. Did you ever do one of those things like, am I really hearing what's being told to me?
Yes, absolutely. Through the spirit box. I never heard him communicate verbally. I just thought he had residual energy attached to him because nobody died. I mean, I've had this is my first teddy bear, and he's been with me.
That's what Mary Christina wanted to know, if it was store-bought or handmade.
This was store-bought. My aunt bought it and shipped it from me out of Arizona to to North Carolina, where we were at the time, and we were on vacation or something like that, and he shipped it out there to me. And he does things, one of the other things that he does, which is really interesting, I'll ask him, will you play me a song? And he has sometimes played his music box. You hear his music box playing, but it's in the air. It's not coming from inside of him. And he has a music box. You know, he's got a...
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if you can hear him, but he plays Rockabye Baby.
Yeah, we can hear it.
He's, you know, his 40 some odd music box still works. But when it plays in the air, it's actually faster and better quality, because this sounds kind of warped and damaged. You know, it's
Oh,
old.
sure, 40 years old, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so it sounds so much better. It's like it'd be like a little, I could say like a little ball of music, a little ball of sound, like floating in the air, like a few inches above him, and you'd hear it in better than what, in a better way than what you hear in the box. It's actually better quality and a little faster. It sounds very clear. It's something that, pardon me, I have to get my
That's all right. We're going mobile.
phone. Sorry.
No worries.
My phone put down. Okay. But he is great personality, and there's one, and I'm finding new things about him. One of the other things he does help me with, he will tell me if there are other spirits around, and he will tell me what they're saying. He will tell me their names, and which is something pretty, and he will tell me whether they are good or evil. Because from his standpoint, they're only good or evil. They're not one way or the other.
So he's a detector, and he's also judgmental of your driving, because
yes, exactly right.
Kathy was finding it amusing.
Yes, he is. He is judgmental of my driving. I don't know, with the plane, with the car, I was thinking about, well, maybe it's similar to being on a plane, because you're in a seated position, you got windows around you like you would on a plane, and maybe that's not a good memory for him. It wasn't a good memory for either of us.
No, it's terrible. Was that in Cincinnati, or where was that?
This was we flew out of the Pittsburgh airport.
Oh, okay.
And we were flying from Pittsburgh to North Carolina, and it was back in the 70s. It was probably 79 when this happened, either 79 or 80.
Oh my gosh.
When that happened. And it was quite an experience. And the thing was that he kept me calm. I mean, my teddy bear kept me calm. And when we got off of the plane, and as we were leaving, the pilot stopped me and said, you know, we had a lot calmer situation. The passengers were not nearly as panicked as they should have been, because you were calm. And he gave me a set of those airplane wings, you know,
yeah,
they
sure,
gave you the pins, the little pins back then. And and this is something that he is able to do. I will ask him if I can't sleep. You know, some nights even a sleeping aid will not work. I will ask him, will you help me fall asleep? And before I know it, I'm sound asleep. And I'll ask him, will you wake me up? And I will wake up before my alarm.
Wow. Well,
I wish I could do that. I have insomnia. I need as much help as I can get.
Apparently,
literally, I'm up till 3 o'clock every day.
Does he make house calls? I mean,
yeah, exactly. Tell him I'm here. Just give me a jingle.
So we've got a few comments in the in the chat here. So Pamela, to what you were just saying, I can feel that. Came into the bear when she was so frightened.
Like a guardian angel.
Mary was wondering, said anything about the plane?
Yes, he repeatedly, if I'm not getting what he's trying to tell me, he will continue to repeat it over and over again. And he kept repeating the plane, remember the plane, remember the plane, remember the plane. And he kept repeating that. I'm like, oh, it took me a while. It actually took me a few days, because it was, long forgotten memory, right? And I thought, oh, well, when was the last time that, he was on a plane with me when an Omax crashed. So he does remember, and he definitely said it was terrifying for me. Mm-hmm. But he communicated to me. He told me, and not in full sentences, that he considers it his job, his duty, to keep me calm, and to make me feel safe and to feel comforted and to make sure I feel happy.
Wow.
So,
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
yeah.
Trezan was saying some believe that we all have our special angel. It would make sense that a sweet bear would be the comfort that a child could relate to.
Absolutely.
Irene, your guardian angel. She also said a protector. So that all seems to resonate.
One bad bear,
right? So
in a good way. In a good bear.
Well, but let's go back though, basically, especially if folks, because we've had a lot of folks, it seems like, are joining us that are new, maybe just tuning in. So you referred to the bear. You had the word that is certainly unique to me. I don't know if it's unique to Darren, of a topa.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I heard that. And then did you mention Sherpa? Was that the other thing you had mentioned?
Right. As one of my understanding, it's in the Sherpa meditation tradition, but it's definitely in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition.
That's what I was wondering about that. Okay.
And so he's not an angel. He is his own entity that I created out of my psychic abilities that created him. And what topas are, I mean, they could be our helpers, they could be our comforters. I think a really good example, I've heard a story about a topa where, you remember the man who wrote the comic book series, The Shadow?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, so he was in absolute poverty, and he knew if he didn't make this character memorable and didn't make it stick, he wasn't going to have a career. He worked really hard on it, and then years after he left his studio, okay, so there's no tragedy, nothing there's died, they would see the shadow, and the shadow seems to miss a description of the character he created.
Whoa, cool.
So it was like he worked on it so hard that it left an imprint.
It manifested, yeah.
And it's a similar situation with him, only I was, maybe as a child, I wasn't aware of my psychic gifts, but I created a personality with him, and it seems like it's quite common for children to have, haunted teddies like this. And I was reading, in fact, somebody put an article together about, sentient teddy bears and how they become so attached. Some of them are actually would move to get back to their owners. Some of them, they're very protective. They'll protect the child. But he's definitely a topa, not an angel. He even says so himself. He says he's a spirit, but he is a living spirit. He's not an angel, and he essentially is a topa. He's me, 5-year-old me in a teddy bear body.
Wow.
Yes.
Which that's interesting, because a lot of times in that case, if you think of an object, a haunted object, then it's certainly exterior, as opposed to this case, a psychic imprint might be a phrase that would come to mind. A bit stronger than that, but at least he's not one that's basically going around carrying a knife or something like that.
Chucky, yeah, or Annabelle, that Annabelle doll.
And then we have that too. So right, exactly.
So keep your teddy bears. Don't throw them out, because I would not. It would be horrible. Throw him out. He's going to be with me. He's going to be in my will.
Right. Right.
Right.
Wow.
You should probably go to a haunted collector. And if you think a really great example, I think, of a topa with a doll with a topa attached is Robert the Doll. I think that is the best example.
We have a picture, don't we? Don't we have a picture of Robert the Doll?
Oh, I have him around here somewhere. Yes, there's good old Robert.
There's Roberto.
Right
now, are you saying that is Robert a good doll, or is he? I
don't think he's a good or bad doll. I mean, people will say, well, he just asks your respect. Basically, he asked permission. You ask permission to take his photo, or he retaliates. I think because it's my experience with my bear and with Robert the Dolls they share, is that they consider themselves living people. They don't consider themselves spirits. Well, they consider them spirits, but they consider themselves living souls. Like we're alive. Like we're living people occupying a body just like us.
Well, that's kind of like
treated the same, treated with the
Well,
same respect.
That's like what Linda was asking, I guess, a living spirit, someone who died and then decided to come back to visit spiritually. I guess she was just kind of seeking a little bit of.
Yeah.
See that.
Now this is nothing. There's no spirit attached to him at all. It's just me. It's just my own psyche. Because if it was a spirit, a human spirit, that would manifest differently. There may be an apparition. I may be having psychic dreams around the bear, and it's not. And when he does appear in dreams for me, and when he does so, it's usually in a manner where he's entertaining me in some way.
Well, again, it's much better to have happy dreams than him chasing around with a butcher knife or something. Well, yeah, is that? And of course, I was going to say, like, well, I'll do it like this. I'm going to ask if folks in the chat if they have any questions relating specifically to the bear before we move on. We've got two more items to talk about, so I'm going to let people have a chance to type any questions that they may have.
I'll hold him up. He loves attention, by the way. When I tell him that he's going to be on the internet and people are going to see him, he got really excited. He was like, "Yahoo!"
The center of attention tonight,
right? He loves attention. He loves it.
Well, so we're giving him attention, but I also, and I was trying to find this question real quick because I wanted this to be a transition before we went and talked about your other two characters. Jason had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. It's our buddy from Road Trip Paranormal. I was going to ask this question about taking stuff home, right?
So it was thoughts on investigators taking objects home with them, not appropriate or up to the individual. I mean, my response would be you never take anything from a location, frankly, because you don't know, or at least I don't think I would know. Angela would know. Someone with a little more intuitive ability might be able to say, that's okay. That's a nice souvenir, or you may even be instructed
hands off
to take that. But if you don't know, don't do it. That's just, to me, a sign of disrespect.
Right, don't do it. In fact, one of my other interests is archaeology and anthropology, and there have been Paleolithic artifacts that archaeologists, of course, they're not going to publicly admit, but in their publications are like, this thing has a demonic attachment. They pick it up, they dig it out in the ground. One of them is a statue that I'm familiar with. I searched all over the internet again because it has a name that's hard to find, but it's very, if you think of the Venus of Visildorf, kind of structure to it, but you can't tell if it's male or female, and it has an anvil-shaped head, and people insist that it's demonic, that it lashes out, it hurts people, and it was found buried in the ground. For example, and another one that had an attachment, Napoleon's cannonballs from Egypt are said to be cursed.
Wow, that's interesting.
Very interesting. And, if ancient artifacts are cursed, in fact, when it was interesting, because I started to research dolls, particularly the history of dolls, and the whole purpose of dolls, the dolls were not ever intended to be toys. Humanity created dolls for their original purpose to be the inhabitation of spirits. So they originally were for religious purposes, and people saying, well, they can't form attachments or anything like that. Well, if you believe in the power of intention, we originally intended dolls to be the habitation of spirits, and they didn't become toys until maybe, 1800s. Then we got to the latter 1800s, they started to get toys, and toys manufacturers got into using them as dolls, but for a long time they weren't. They were for ritual purposes.
Well, that kind of relates to what Irene was talking about, dolls and barrows in our country. She's actually in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Soul in them. So
interesting.
Yeah, especially here in Japan. So that
there's that doll in Japan that grows live, living human hair. That's supposed to be inhabited by a deceased little girl.
Come again? Really?
Yes. It was analyzed by scientists that this little girl passed away, and the doll was made in her honor, and the doll's hair grows like human hair, and it is human hair when they tested it, and people have a little shrine for her with that doll and go to it. So
Well,
it's in a temple in Japan. It's interesting too.
so one last question before we move on to your next friend, just
Right.
because it's kind of
Is it
relevant.
a friend or is it a foe?
Well, I know because it could go either way. She kind of has
Ah.
either possibilities there.
Suspense. Yes.
So actually, I just lost it for a second there. So here we go. Trezen, if you grab something that presents badly. So basically, I think it's if you take something and that was wrong. Well, how do you get rid of it, basically?
Well, people have taken things from Bodie, and it's a little mining town, and they got terrible bad luck, and they just mail it back. Sometimes with an object, you have to put them back where you found them. Yeah, just put them back is the best thing. If you end up with an object, say you inherited an object, sometimes I've had people tell me they inherited an object and all of a sudden they've got depression and they feel kind of this dark and heaviness. Well, I said, well, was it attached to the living person who was kind of a shut-in and then maybe towards the end of their life and they were kind of depressed? I said, yes, coming with that energy. If it's coming with that energy, one of the things that you could do is you could put crystals around. I mean, I got this labradorite. I like a fluorite, labradorite. That, in my experience, works really well for draining that negative energy. It just drains it because a crystal is a very stable structure and it's a repeating pattern of an eternity, basically, a repeated mathematical pattern. And for some reason, dark energy gets trapped in it and it seems to drain it off. I've tried iron, I've tried other crystals, I've tried salt, I've tried holy water, I've tried prayer, I've tried exorcism. None of it works. The only thing that I find that really works are the crystals, like the protective crystals. Like this is labradorite and this has red garnet and moonstone and citrine on the top. I think any type of polished clear crystal. Labradorite particular is not a clear crystal, but it is a very glass-like structure. So something glass, something smooth. Fluorite comes from China. It's very inexpensive. Selenite is a very lightweight, soft stone. It's white. Those types of crystals work very well, in my experience, in draining off that negative energy and disempowering it.
Right. And actually, Gina, just when you said that,
Yeah, I saw that.
Have you tried selenite? And so she was typing that while you were sharing it. Then so, and Pamela was also wondering, would a smudging help?
No, I've tried it. It don't work. Because I've had a particularly negative energy, and smudging doesn't seem to work at all. What my experience has been when entities, when they choose to attach to something, they occupy that space like a body, and it's a protective space. It's like a shelter. You cannot extract them from it. You can't separate them any more than you could separate me, separate my spirit from my body by smudging and, using whatever you want to do to try to separate my spirit from my body. It just doesn't work for them. And the only thing that I find that works are the fluorite crystals, labradorite protective crystals. And also if it's really strong and it's chaotic and kind of caught off guard, one of the things I like to do, and it's been effective 100% of the time in my experience, is to bring up the emotion of love, bring up the most positive image that you can. Maybe it's an image of Jesus. Maybe it's a connection with family. Bring out the most positive thing. Bring out as much love as you can. Turn it into like a laser light and just take that wide beam laser and project it at it. And it makes them back down immediately. You immediately feel that energy back off.
That's cool.
Awesome tips. Well, so who are we moving on to? Is it door number one? Door number two?
Let's move on to Jenna.
Jenna. All right. Well,
remember that the doll, the pretty doll, the more modern looking doll.
Oh yes. So we have, I believe this is Jenna, right?
Oh, okay.
Right. That is her vessel. I think her doll vessel was called something else when I bought it, but Jenna is the spirit attached, the human woman attached to this. And of
Okay,
course, I did a portrait of her.
Yeah, I was going to let folks take a peek at the actual doll first, and so that is what you had shared with me. But then the portrait of Jenna looks like this. So tell us about Jenna. What's her backstory and everything?
Well, I actually bought the doll from a group that just collects haunted objects. And they said this was good for every collector. There was nothing threatening with it. Already, a psychic like me had already tuned into it. And I tuned into her, and she seemed like this would be a good person or a good soul. So she was shipped out to me from California. And the first few nights here, there wasn't a whole lot of paranormal activity. There was just whispering in my living room. And I had a little ball of cold air that was kind of moving independently around my living room. And when I used a spirit box with her, she didn't say a whole lot, but the other medium was saying that she likes cats and dogs. And when there's a cat or dog on, she will often freeze the image on cats and dogs. And I was getting the same experience when I was kind of scrolling through, looking at pictures of my cats, videos of cats and dogs, and she would freeze the thing. But eventually she started talking out loud, not through the spirit box so much. She would say things that I couldn't quite understand what she was saying, but it would be loud and audible, just like I thought somebody was in my apartment. I thought maybe a maintenance person had a lady in here. They were just changing things out, and I'm hearing this woman going on and on and on. When I walk in the door, there's nobody here, but I hear the voice talking. But it's muffled. I can't understand what's being said, even though the voice is right next to me. But she's getting better at this. And
Jordan thinks she feels at home.
Yes. Yeah. Kick up your feet. Enjoy yourself.
Absolutely. She's a young lady, and the only thing that she said to the spirit box are things she doesn't have very good comments about men, and this is related to how she passed. Because she connected with me strongly enough to show me how she passed. This was in the early 70s, either late 60s, early 70s. I'm thinking more early 70s, when she was about 20. And she had a boyfriend who was violent, and her brother tried to save her, and he knew it was going to happen to her, and he tried to rush in. And he was beating her. He rushed in, and he was there too late. He did shoot him. And he wasn't held liable for anything because he caught him right in the act of, attacking his sister. But I believe she passed on the way to the hospital from her injuries. But you notice that she's not like a lot of spirits that die a violent death. A lot of them kind of messed up, or they look kind of carry their wounds with them, and she's not like that at all. She kind of accepted everything the way it was, and I think that's probably key, where she's not burdened, she's not sad, she's not in any way feeling lost or anything. I just get a sense that she did either go to light or came close to the light and decided, no, I want to stay a little while and have fun. I'll attach myself to a vessel like this, and I'll get to still experience some of the worldly things that go on. And she's fascinated by technology. She likes to operate technology. She likes to interrupt it. She likes to figure out how it works. She speaks out loud now to where I can understand her, and it just sounds like somebody is in the room talking to me. And for instance, I was taking a rest on the sofa back here, and somebody said in my ear, "Can you understand me?" And
you're kind of like, what? Who's that?
Do you understand the words coming out of my mouth?
Exactly. And it sounded like an auto-tune, but I've come to recognize her voice. Her voice is higher pitched than mine. So I recognize her voice. It's incredible that she chooses to manifest herself that way, that she can actually be verbal, and that she's working on it and she's practicing it. And I thought I would be the most boring person to her in the world, because one, she's still 20. I'm almost 50. I'm probably not a very exciting woman for her.
Right.
probably not all that entertaining. I'm not, going out and and clubbing. I'm not bringing people into my apartment. But I think she's entertained by the art that I do, and I think that's where our connection is. I think she really is interested in that, and she's really interested in also in the technology, especially when I'm trying to work from home, and she's was very, very interested. She was like, how does that work? Oh, how do you get on? You know?
Right.
She is still looking for, I think she still wants to find some way of having fun, to be included in things. I'm trying to think of things, and the only thing I could think of are like games and like board games, things like that. But I'm thinking more of the electronic type of games. And the only things I could think of would be some of those ghost equipment that you use, where you have like a yes and no buttons on them. You know, things that light
Old
up.
school. Yeah.
Old school stuff like that, and that might be entertaining. It's not exactly in my budget right now.
Right.
So I'm sticking with art, and you know, I talk to her every once in a while, and show her some things on the phone, and hope knows what's going on social media, so she can kind of be like a young woman of today who would be all into that.
Right.
So I'm just
And I might have missed it, but where does the doll stay? In your house, your room, or is it in a different location? Or
she's behind me on the shelf.
That's what I thought. Okay, I just wanted. I was like, hey, that looks like a doll back there. Okay.
Yeah. She's and a beautiful doll that she picked out, absolutely gorgeous. You know, if you want, I can go get it and bring it up here and show you. But she,
like a debutante.
Yeah, so it's one of these collector dolls. You know, you'd have around as an art piece and not really a play doll. But I had a Gibson doll that got ruined by the movers. So
oh no,
I need a replacement.
Well, so Ed had a question that I was definitely curious about. He was wondering if there were any recordings, if you had some video or audio evidence that you've been able to capture over time.
Not yet, because everything's incorporated into my phone, so I can't play that on the phone while I'm using my phone for this video. But I'm planning to purchase a spirit box so that will have the ability to record what it's capturing. You know, right now, the only evidence I have a phonetic dictionary on the ghost box that's incorporated in my phone that remembers all the words that it's saying or it hears. Right. Now, sometimes the words that will say on the screen and what I hear over the headphones are completely different. So I know it's I don't know whether that's an AI thing, whether the AI is built into that app and is trying to interpret what's being said, or whether that's a spirit thing. I'm not sure on that. But I'm going to be gathering that, because before I even invest in something like that, first I want to be sure that any of these dolls have actual paranormal phenomenon, because I wouldn't want to invest in something and then all of a sudden nothing happens. They get nothing. So this one, she definitely does, she does manifest audio sound. So I will be using a recorder of some kind where I should be able to leave and pick up sound for her speaking. And then we have another doll that definitely can make life difficult.
Yes, transitioning to our last segment of the evening, we've got and what is actually her name, because looks rather innocent.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks cuddly-ish.
The creepy factor is not there in this picture, basically. However, the creepy factor is there in this picture.
Oh my goodness!
Yep.
So you're gonna have to explain that one, basically, since Darren just soiled himself. So
yes, the doll's right next to me. By the way, I can go grab it. But
hopefully it's in a cage, maybe. Oh my gosh!
This entity I actually bought from a collector that is hailed from West Virginia, has a haunted like a little mini haunted museum. And when I first got her, I bought her around the Bel Air house because there was a Paracon that was going on there, and the Bel Air house is just down the, literally just down the road from where I used to live. So I'm kind of familiar with the area. And when I first got her, I felt a presence. It felt like something was trying to press on my throat, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. Ooh. I put her in the car, and my phone would not work. My cell phone kept producing static, like when we used to have just 4 channels and you just turned it UHF and you got the snow.
Yes.
That's what my phone was doing.
Whoa.
And I had to put her in the back seat and my phone went to normal because I need to use my GPS to get home. So I get home and what I experienced was just, this is going to be hard to explain. That head that I drew, that's what I was seeing in my home. Okay, it started appearing to me psychically, and just the top half of a skull with crazy hair everywhere. It's very chaotic energy. I thought, okay, I'll just put a little bit of salt around her, and I'll put her outside because that time I had outside storage, and I'll just sit down in the chair. I feel a little tired on my trip. I'm going to take a rest. So I took a rest, and then when I woke up and changed clothes, I had discovered I'd been stabbed all over. I've been stabbed on one side of my body. I had bloody stab wounds from my shoulder down to my waist, and it looked like I'd been stabbed with like knitting needles. It was like little like pinpricks, whatever, small, round, something like needle-like. And I had no idea. I didn't feel it when it happened. I just woke up with stab wounds, and I realized the side that because I sleep on my side, the side that got stabbed was the side that was facing the doll.
Oh.
When I had my first night of sleep, I had horrific nightmares. They were just another level of nightmares and night terrors. I'm just violence, all sorts of horrible, imaginable, unimaginable scenes of violence and different ways of violence, of mutilations, horrible,
oh my goodness,
dark energy, and kind of an insanity, severe depression, and it was just this violent attack. And after a while, and I realized this was this entity because I could see this entity, that head started showing up in my dreams, and I thought this must be her. And I started to do the love thing. I brought as much love as I can, and I went to and I said, I love you, love is everything, I love you, and then it got weaker and weaker and weaker, and my dream started to organize itself in a way that it was so weak I had organization. I mean, my mind was thrown into total chaos, and I could feel this really dark depression that was trying to inject into me. It was like trying to take control of me. And she would even do physical things like move stuff around in my kitchen. She has audibly growled. Her face has changed facial expressions. We've been communicating in our, in dream realm, where I got to the point where I was facing her all the time. And I said, if you're going to keep attacking me like this, I'm going to keep attacking you. I'm going to do it with love. I love. I have faith. I'm not afraid of you. Over and over, relentlessly. And eventually she developed a respect where she was no longer in attack mode. She would have these weak attacks, but they weren't very strong. And she would take on 3 forms. And one of the forms that you see is the skull with the floating head.
Mm-hmm.
The other one she has, it looks like from a much earlier time, of a woman that's in a green dress, maybe contemporary to the Elizabethan era, big red hair, and other times just something with big white, big dark hair, a white face, and no eyes, and just black eyes. She has growled. She has scratched. She is extremely violent, and I got her name. I know her name is Octavia, and she makes no bones about it that she's demonic. She's a demon. but
Now,
I'm not.
let me ask you an obvious question, though. Have you thought about telling Octavia to hit the road and, I don't know,
I tried.
dispose of her or it?
I cannot get, I cannot separate her from the attachment. But she did give me a backstory, and when I went to another location, I had other ghost hunters around me, and I asked about their equipment, and so we started asking questions because I didn't want to use just mine because I just want to be biased and think that this is just my equipment giving these results or intelligent responses. But she has her own distinct voice that you can recognize on a spirit box, and she also will communicate through EMF. So she kept giving me a backstory, and of course, this is a dark entity. So anytime any dark entity gives me a story, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. I'm going to have a little doubt about it. It may just be a sob story for what I know. But she gave me a story that in the 1900s, she says she was from 1900, that at the time, mercury was being used as a medicine. And a doctor was treating a little girl with this mercury. She didn't get well, so he gave her more mercury, and as a result, she passed away.
Of course.
The grandmother was a witch, and she was very, very upset. She was very vengeful on the family. She actually bound the entity and bound this demon to this doll on Halloween night, so she is very active on Halloween, and gave it to the doctor's family. And I thought that makes sense because years ago when I got her, I got the impression that it came from a doctor's family, or a doctor's that he'd passed it down through their family. And there are stains on her, and I don't know if you noticed there. If you want, I can bring the doll.
I did actually. I was going to ask you about that.
There are blood stains on this doll.
That's what it looked like, blood stains.
I did a test. You can get luminol. Deer hunters use it, to track deer. So I got my luminol kit, and this doll lights up and glows in the dark completely.
Yeah, look at that in many spots.
The big stain is not blood, and I don't know what that is, but you can see smaller stains. Those are blood, and there's also blood that you can't see. It looks like it may have been sprinkled on, so I'm thinking that maybe when this was ritually done, she's saying she was ritually bound, which the person may have just used chicken blood or something and sprinkled it on the doll as maybe an offering or a sacrifice to try to bound this thing. This doll also produced dried blood one night, sitting on the glass table. And remember, I had put salt around her, like, brush salt, but then I don't know whether she would counteract that. Apparently she did, and there was dried blood all around. I mean, it's obvious. I've seen dried blood. If you had meat or something and it dries up kind of brown, it was like she had a ring of dried blood around her.
So Angela, I think the question that is burning my mind and maybe others, especially since several people were like, "It'd be gone. I'd
burn it. Yeah.
Trash."
Right.
Why do you keep said doll?
For one thing, I've learned a lot about attachments and how to help people that have objects with negative attachments. And another thing, it would be dangerous for me to try and get rid of it, because what if somebody else picks it up and now they're stuck with this? So I'm kind of keeping her held back, because I got her held back and I got her negativity drained to the point where she can't do hardly anything. And at some point, if there was any way to ceremoniously be rid of her, I would think it would be like having a burial somewhere in a grave somewhere, with holy water or salt or crystals around her. The stern warning on the box. But I also think she would continue to be a good study. So somebody that's an experienced collector that studies demonology and they need an example, this would be still a good thing to study. But I don't feel like it's safe to leave her out anywhere or left anywhere where she could be found at any time. And this is an antique doll. If she's true, if she's around 1900, that would be well over 100 years old by now.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Right.
a true antique doll, but you'd have to, it would have to come with a stern warning. This is a demonic entity that's attached. This is what you do to keep that entity in check. And if you want to keep it for study, research purposes, absolutely, but do it safely and make sure that you've got a lot of experience and that you're doing the crystals and that you have the discipline, because it took discipline to fight her, to stand up with her without fear, to bring love to my mind and to bring because everything I was doing seemed counterintuitive, but if I followed by intuition, it would work. Yet it took a lot. It took a lot. And it took a lot of time to master that kind of mental discipline and emotional and intuitive discipline and ability to keep her in check, and also to pick her up and know when she's active, when she's not active.
Right.
One of the interesting things about her that she will clue me in on other demonic entities, and she did clue me in on one once where I had that demonic attack where that demon had physically attacked me, punching me from under my bed and punching me in the ribs and so forth, that I told you about. And I did a portrait of him.
Yep.
And when I was doing that portrait of him, she, who was, seated, behind me while I was doing the portrait, was growling and hissing at him like she
like a demon.
Yeah, like she recognized them.
What they do.
She's like, it's like the demonic, they are in competition with each other. So, it's like there's hostility between the ranks. She would outrank him, but she recognized him. She's like hissing and growling at him, and
it wasn't like a mating call thing.
Demons hate each other as much as they hate us, but they're in competition. They're hostile.
Whole lot of hate going on there. Actually, so we're under 3 minutes right now, so I definitely wanted to kind of draw us down to a close. We certainly hit on a lot of topics that I hope have been educational to folks. One, to get out of the way, it's certainly as important as the other ones. It's been scrolling while we've been talking, but if you would like to be able to take advantage of Angela's amazing artistic abilities, easiest way to get in touch with her is her Facebook page, facebook.com/Angela Boley Portrait Artist, and you'll be able to see the demon portrait she just mentioned, along with a whole bunch of other good examples right there. But I think the thing that's probably important as far as a public service announcement would be, it might be easy to say, is that a thing? But even lumping in the idea of taking stuff from a location, you gotta treat it with respect.
Exactly.
You can't just play around with that. Unfortunately, I think a lot of folks just think of like, I'll have this doll and I'll put it on video and take it with me on adventures or whatever. And it's like, as you're alluding to, it's like, well, if you don't know what you're doing, you could be opening yourself up to some pretty big trouble.
Yeah,
exactly. News. And I've come across even antique, going to antique stores. My mom's intuitive, and there have been dolls that we walk by and go, "Wow, that's a really
bad energy."
That is not. The doll would look one way, and to us, it would look something different. We'd have an image of our mind of the same person or the same being attached to it. So be very careful when you're antiquing and you're looking and you're in the antique doll market. And in the antique market in Ohio, even furniture is, they've had things come attached with, when you're doing these antiques. Be very cautious and respectful of that and be aware of it. So if you bring something that you bought at an antique store, be it a furniture or a doll, even some old tools or whatever, and all of a sudden your environment changes and you feel emotionally different or distraught, or you feel something negative, start having nightmares, it may just be the object that you brought in that you may just introduced. So that's when you would reach out to somebody like me, or somebody that has experience with these items that can help neutralize that. And of course, with those tips, you can try keeping love in your mind. You can do the crystals. You can do, that calm, that self-calm, that empowerment. You can take your authority over it and tell it to not have any control over you or have any influence over you. Don't give it permission. Just take away its permission, saying, don't give you permission to do that. You're not allowed to do that to me.
Perfect. And on that note, we're out of time. But folks, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your night. We will see you next week.